Life is complex. So is our mental health. It cannot be understood by diagnosis alone. Our philosophy is treat the person, not the mental illness.
Well, welcome to our first podcast. This is Humanizing Mental Health. I am Jeremy Alcorn, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Trenton Akers.
This first episode, we're really looking at and reflecting on what brought us to this position, a decision around wanting to put this together, and really what is this podcast going to be about.
Yeah, and I kind of, when I think about that, I almost think of a mission statement, because, when you go on, you kind of think, okay, what begins a journey? Like, what is our purpose? They always say it's about the journey, but you also have to kind of have a destination, an idea of where we're going and what we want to learn along the way. So, what do you want to learn, Jer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That is actually an amazing question, because I always thought about what is it I'm going to do for someone else. Mm-hmm. And this really is a process in which everything that we get involved with, it also shapes ourself. And maybe that's a big part of the reason why I wanted to do this to begin with. Initially, I started by being invited into another podcast. Here about a year ago in our community, there was what they call a contagion suicide, in which individuals in a particular group had multiple people had died, and there just wasn't enough resources in our system to be able to truly support and deal with this process. In fact, at the time, I had been working for the Alberta Health Services Addiction and Mental Health, and I could see that from the inside that it felt like we were that little kid, that Dutch kid in Holland with the dike that saw, hey, there's a crack in that, and that dam is probably going to just burst open. So I'm going to put my finger in there and I'm going to just sit here forever, holding the entire wave of water from crushing this community. And of course, that was impossible. So some people from the community decided that this needs to be something that is not just a formalized process for people's wellness, and they formed an organization and had asked me to join them. So that was really my starting point.
All right, yeah. So kind of you were going from being the little Dutch boy to now we're kind of you want to be an engineer. You want to look at the whole dam and say, rather than going crack by crack, we're just going to try and not really remake the dam, but what we're going to do is we're going to try and really slather on some new concrete, and we're going to kind of get in everybody else so that we can work together as a community to kind of build our dam better.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in some ways, it's like maybe some of the ways that we have considered or thought about our wellness are outdated. Perhaps that infrastructure is not what we need anymore, and we need to relook at that.
Yeah. And, I think that's a really good point. And really, for me, I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join in on this. Because as you look at how knowledge grows, and when you're in academics, and I've been in academics for a great number of years, and I mean, new ideas come in, and as a clinician or whoever you are, you disseminate it out into the public. But it's kind of like getting groceries to the store, getting bananas to the store. I mean, they look yellow and they look healthy, but I mean, you take them home, you eat them, and I mean, they start to go brown. So rather than having to truck the bananas in, why don't we grow the banana tree right there with people and kind of change the bananas, or maybe develop new vegetables right as people need them, so that we can have the nutrients that they need to make them as healthy as possible.
For sure. I think you're talking about this foundation of wellness. So for me, when I had this opportunity to sit down and speak with some people on a podcast and really be open and kind of raw and hear their stories and hear some things. I just went, man, I want to continue this. In fact, I think that there's maybe a bit of a concept or an idea that I want to really promote. And from there, I thought, I don't want to do this alone. And when I was considering who is it that I would want to be involved in that, and honestly, there wasn't even any other person that came to mind when it came to having a co-host, because of just the knowledge and the ability that I see in you, Trent. And I thought we want to create something that is talking about seeing the human and not a disease or a disorder. And it just felt like that was going to be a really good fit.
Yeah, no, and thank you, and I really appreciate that. It's taken me years to grow my knowledge. It's I didn't wake up this intelligent. I had raw intelligence, but and I mean, anybody who knows me, I read like 2-3 books a month. I will recommend to you, 5 or 6 books, and I mean, probably at one point you're like, okay, I'm gonna just need a shelf and like just a library just on all the stuff that I recommend to you. And and I must admit that I've slowed down as of late, but that's because I'm kind of reaching a plateau, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's the new area that I need to go into? But when you say see the human in the disease model, I think for myself, and I mean for those of you that are maybe have seen me in Medicine Hat, and for those of you that are just listening to me for the first time, since you're not literally right in front of me, and even though I'm sitting in it, I am a wheelchair user. I've been a wheelchair user for about 34 years. I have cerebral palsy. It's something that I would say has really enhanced my life. I would never say that I never have a day where I don't have a down day, but I would never truly give up my disability, because even though it has disabled me, and I never want to get rid of the term disability because there is a disadvantage in my life, it's kind of been like a funnel, or almost been like as you form metal, it's formed me into who I am. And rather than seeing it, even though it's a disability, as a disadvantage, I see it as my springboard for empathy and understanding, and it's brought me here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I hope this is okay, Trent, for me to share an experience that I had with you that really, I think, describes what we're talking about when we're talking about humanizing mental health, because mental health is not something that just lives inside you. As Daniel Siegel talks about, there's really 3 aspects of your mind, and not all of them are inside your body. The mind is this emergent entity that exists in connections, and some of those connections are neurological in your skull and in your skin. Some of those connections have to do with people that are in your life that's literally a part of your mind, and some of those connections have to do with your connection to your physical environment. And so one of the things that really jumps out to me is I remember this experience in which you said, hey, Jeremy, I got this assignment, and I'm really hoping that I could interview you for this. And so we met up, and you had a caregiver with you at the time, and for transportation and so forth. Realistically, they didn't need to be in the meeting, but they were not that I wouldn't be welcoming. It's just that then I remember at the end of the meeting, I said, Trent, they can't see past your chair.
Yeah, and that's something that I really have struggled with, and for me, it's a hot button issue. I mean, just the level of infantilization. I mean, as I've grown older, I mean, I will brush it off, and for those that meet me, and I will probably spit out a few very large words every once in a while. I also have an expansive lexicon. And for me, that is partially because I am intelligent, but for me, me, that's also my defense mechanism, because people will see me within a certain embodied self where, okay, yes, that is me, that is my embodied self, but I'm also active outside of that. And, it's about how do we appear to other people, and how much of who we are and how other people perceive us are we going to internalize, and really how much of that is going to be our narrative, and how much are we going to allow other people to write, and how much are we going to be an author and be a co-author with other people.
For sure. And when you describe this, because we want to be empowered in ourselves. And at the same time, people, those connections are part of our mind. Mm-hmm. And so literally, this individual in your life that really couldn't see past the chair, it has this impact. Mm-hmm. And I would hope and I think that some of that impact gets mitigated as the conversation that we have after, when I'm like, Trent, that person can't see past your chair, then all of a sudden that part of you that is connected has a buffer, has something that balances out, that someone can see this, someone knows, someone can identify that this isn't okay, and the way that that's happening isn't all right, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I really like that, especially what you say, because people talk about the fact that we have this sense of ourselves, and that we're consistent all the way through, but really it's the people that we have in our lives and the various settings that really allow us to express and activate various parts of ourselves. And that's why it's so key and so important that when you're having people in your life, you have to ask yourself, when you're thinking, okay, how is this person for me? Are they healthy for me? What parts of them are really expressing who we are, who you are as an individual? And is that a healthy part of yourself?
Yeah.
And what is that dialectic like between the two of you?
Right.
Are you healthy for them, and are they healthy for
right.
you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. In fact, I want to take that example of, being in the restaurant with you and seeing that dynamic happen, talking to you about it later. And then there's this mirror experience that happened. And we'd gone to a show, probably some superhero movie.
Yeah.
That's the way it works, right?
Of course.
Absolutely. I'm probably one of those DC ones that were just garbage. Garbage. Man, why did we even go to that?
Well, we go to that because, like Superman, we have unending hope.
Maybe. But anyway, we come out of the show, and someone just sees you, and I could see them light up, and they come towards you, and they start talking to you. And this person, if I didn't know better, I would say they had an Austrian accent because they had the muscles to go with it. Like, hello, Trenton.
Okay. I didn't know that I knew Schwarzenegger. Oh,
no, I'm pretty sure you don't. But it was clear that this person you knew from the gym, and they were talking to you, and I could see they see Trenton. Mm-hmm. They see Trent. They don't see the wheelchair.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think who that is, because the first, when I first think of an Austrian accent, there are two people that come to mind. One is my physiotherapist that I had when I was a small child, which I don't think I saw him there. And then the other one is a German nurse that used to work as a psychiatric nurse years ago. Honestly, that's what I'm going down a tangent, but I'll say one of the greatest things about my disability, I may not be able to travel the world, but bits and pieces of the world come to me. And just returning to your point, because I don't want, our listeners, and I'm thinking, okay, he's digressing. He's going down a rabbit hole, and I'm sitting.
This is what we do, though, right?
Yeah, no.
I mean, I say something about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and next thing you know, this is where we are.
Yeah, yeah. Next thing you know, I'm getting a metal exoskeleton to go along with my mechanized chair.
Yeah, becoming $6 million man.
Oh yeah, but then I need to have the red jumpsuit and the eye, and I just don't have the hair like Lee Majors does.
Yeah, you're right. You don't got the hair.
No, I don't. I mean, you made that joke years ago of me being Professor X.
I still call you X.
I know, but I'm slowly getting there, and it's driving me nuts.
Well, yeah. I mean, fair enough. I'm not sure how many people could make that reference and you'd be okay with it. That that you're Professor X. It really had to do with your brain, and you get around with wheels just like him. Had nothing to do with baldness.
No. Although I will say this: the two people that they've had playing Professor X, McAvoy and Stewart. I mean, come on, that's not bad. If they're going to play me in a biography, okay, I'm cool with that.
All right, I'll put in a word for you.
All right, fair enough. Good old Captain Picard.
Yeah. So as we connect into this and we go, okay, hey, I'm looking for somebody that I wanted, that I felt like really matched what I was trying to accomplish, and what I saw like in you, trying to actually fit that. That is to say, this position of humanizing our experience, and with the variety of things that you brought to that. So that this partnership really, I think, formed in that way. And of course, with years of time in which we just spent together, and forming what becomes, like I said, part of your mind. Our mind is in our connections.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you think about that, because I was reading a study a while ago, or it may have been I was watching a documentary, and it's really interesting when you think about. Actually, they looked at inner conversations that people will have with themselves, and during times of stress, individuals will actually talk to themselves, and at times too they'll even visualize other people. So if you think about it, almost from various psychological theories, I can talk about internal family systems, or for those of you that may be familiar with Virginia Satir, it's sort of, you internalize certain people, whether it be, you could be sort of my logical part of my mind when I'm very stressed, or when I need somebody to calm me down, or maybe for you, I don't know how you would internalize me. Maybe when you're thinking about superheroes, and sort of that fun-loving person, maybe that's who, that part of me in you pops up.
In fact, I love the fact that you bring up Virginia Satir. I haven't thought of Virginia Satir for a long, long time. In my master's paper, it was one of the foundational theories, her communication theories, and it was really a big deal, because for Virginia Satir, it's really all about, once again, connection, particular connection. She is where I really learned about communicating beyond the words, particularly when you talk about touch, and you talk about the interconnectedness of people. She had this idea and this metaphor: take a piece of yarn and tie it to every single person in your family, and every single time you move, it tugs on everybody.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you bring that up, because when you're talking about the web of connection, now this is bringing me back to my master's, because we were doing a thing on intergenerational trauma, and specifically around Aboriginal communities, and when people are taken out of that web forcefully, whether it be painfully, of course, what would happen with the residential schools, or even through the natural course of death, it's that web is changed, and it's all about how does that impact the individual, how does that impact the larger community, and how do we keep that web together and keep those strands strong.
For sure. In fact, you talk about this and it just jumps out at me. What is it that we're trying to do? What we're trying to do is we're trying to get some attention on wellness. And because so much of the data out there is very focused on disease, and it's like, okay, what do you do for depression, and maybe some of the answers that they're talking about in terms of exercise and connecting with other people, and doing a behavioral process to get yourself going, cognitive therapy. Some of these things they are good and wonderful things. It's just that why are we so concentrated on disease, and being clear that those are not actually the problems. We're talking about symptoms. And what does it mean to humanize something? Today, someone had called in and had wanted to book an appointment, and not knowing who I am, of course, it was fantastic. They wanted to know a little bit about me, and as I started to talk about my experience and talking about training at the Calgary Counseling Center and then working for the military for a couple of years, and they said that I worked for Alberta Health Services for whatever that was, 13 years, in that DSM model, and understanding that medical model, but also understanding that we are not walking diseases.
No, we're not. When I think of walking diseases, like the image that kind of comes to my mind is, how do we view disease? Disease is something that we want to get away from, that we want to get rid of, and it's. We don't want to get away from humanity. Humanity is the point. Like it's coming back to Carl Rogers. It's coming back to that connection. It's coming back to even the iceberg model of the disease, what we're experiencing. That's the tip. Let's boil down, or let's drill down. Let's get a real core sample of our iceberg. And if you really look at that, if any of you out there have ever looked at core samples of icebergs, it's really interesting, because as an iceberg grows and changes, there'll be various layers. It's almost like a part of a tree. Like if you take a core sample out of a tree, various rings will grow, they'll change, and that's really kind of what forms people for who they are. So we're looking at the surface. Let's get below the surface and let's see what kind of brought that about, and let's find the healthiness and let's nurture that.
Yeah. So for a long time, I felt like I was rescuing people out of a river. And I'm running up and down the banks, and there's a bunch of people that are in the river, and I'm throwing them stuff and helping pull them out. But really, upstream there's a bridge, and the bridge is broken. And nobody's telling people the bridge is broken. Nobody's going to fix the bridge. We're just pulling people out of the river.
Yeah. So you're throwing them the CBT life raft. You're throwing them the eat healthy water wings, and it's like, okay, wait. Let's talk about, okay, those things are great, but let's go back up and let's say, okay, how do we integrate that even before, so that they know that that's coming up, so that when they reach that they've got the wood, they've got the tools. So maybe they don't jump the bridge, but maybe what we want to do, you and I talked about this before we had sat down, but how do you take that all that stuff and, not just float down the river, but really integrate it into your life so you can build that bridge all the way across?
Yeah, for sure. Like it circles back to what we were talking about before, about that little kid in Holland, putting his finger in the dike to stop the flood. That this position is, we're spending so much time in the part of mind that is the individual, and that's not unimportant. It's important. So we're spending so much time there, and some of that is that cognitive therapy and a range of other types of therapy, and some of it is medication, and there's a place for that. It's just that we're missing the boat around that. The number of people that are experiencing mental illness is continually increasing. And I think what we're missing the boat on is that this is a symptom, not of just individuals. It's a symptom of a society that is not healthy. And the social recovery humanizing mental health is about humanizing the individual, and about how is it that we start to create a healthy tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like no man is an island, and no tree should be seen alone. But really, we're trying to work with the tree, and we're also trying to make the forest healthy, so that the biome, the person in the environment, as you and I have talked about, like we're trying to bring all of those connections back, so that the web is really to that point of healthiness. Because I may not have the same level of clinical experience as you, but I remember, whenever I've done my depression and anxiety groups, like that's really the first 2 nights is like looking at the factors, like the 9 nodes of depression and anxiety, and we may look at all of these 9 nodes individually, whether it be healthy eating or whether it be, your symptoms of depression. But if you deal with those in isolation, it's like putting out spots in a fire. You need to deal with it all at once and see how they're all interconnected.
For sure. In fact, it reminds me of another kind of metaphor, something that happens in nature. I remember a neighbor that had just brilliant grass, and my grass, well, it's not brilliant. And I was asking, hey, what weed killer and stuff do you use on this? And they just said, I don't. And they said, you see, because of the process that I go through in getting the grass healthy, it grows so thick, weeds can't grow in it.
I like it. Yeah. So if we build up the resiliency, that even if those do come along, they can't, they can't
take root.
They can't take root. They might be there momentarily, because we can't say that you're never going to have a life where you're not going to have struggle.
For sure. In fact, that wouldn't be human.
No. Could you imagine what it would be like if you lived in a world where everything was perfect? Perfection would kind of lose its luster. It would actually be boring. I almost think of that quote from Captain Kirk. It's one of my favorites, where he says, risk is our business. That's what this starship is about. That's why we're aboard her. That's what life is about. It's about risk. We're going to give you the tools. We're going to have these connections so that you can go out there and you can have your risk.
It's so funny you say that, man, because I was totally thinking of Spock. I was like, man, I do not want to live like a Vulcan. That's not good.
Well, but at the same time, too, Vulcans are cool, but you also have to wonder, what's going on underneath Spock? Because he keeps those emotions and everything tamped down, and then every 7 years, he's got Pong Far. He's going off the deep end. He's battling Kirk. He's, being rude to I was gonna say Nurse Ogawa, but that's Nurse Chapel. Do we really want to be Spock? Do we really want to be rude to our friends and mean to ourselves? Or do we want to have that nice, gentle release and recognize our emotions, being able to keep them in balance?
For sure. Being able to live with all of our feelings.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they're really, really big. And that's why we can't do it alone. That's why we need a tribe.
Absolutely. If you think about it, and because I think you and I have talked about this with little kids, where parents will help a child, like when they're going beyond their window of tolerance or their ability to handle things, and the parent will say, okay, let's talk about this, let's peel it back. That really, if you think about, I know they say some of us never truly grow up, and some people don't.
You've seen my office. I got all sorts of toys and stuff in there, Superman, Batman.
You're sitting beside a Spider-Man teddy bear.
That's right. That's actually from that's a Build-A-Bear, isn't it? You built that bear.
I built that bear on my niece's 5th birthday. But and you know what?
And you named him Pedro?
No.
Hey, come on, man. Why can't there be a Spanish Spider-Man?
I think there is a Pedro Parker. And yes, I can roll my R's, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I have a very talented tongue. I'm not Inigo Montoya. But anyway, but really, the microcosm of how you think about they talk about, in order to raise a good society, we need good children and we need to provide them that solid base. Why does that solid base go away when we magically become adults or when we magically become teenagers? Why is it we go from being a chain of islands to being a baby island to then being an island onto ourselves? We're all still connected. We all still have that child inside of us that needs to be nurtured, and the child is connected to the adult.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, like in multiple ways this fits, right? Like you've got that in terms of your outside connections. And also you have that inside of yourself. Yeah. That is, how is it that I am a healthy person? If I truly can connect with what I need, which is an attached connection, right, that's not only from other people, that's also from me. Can I treat myself with kindness?
Absolutely. Your internalized attachment figure. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's exactly it. Those are the words. The internalized attachment figure. That is the stuff.
Yeah, well, no, and that is one of the most brilliant things kind of about attachment theory. Like, that they say that we carry pieces of our parents with us wherever we go, or that we eventually become, our father or mother. A lot of us
take it easy.
Yeah,
I am not Mr. Alcorn. That's my dad. I don't care how old I get. I might be 44 years old, but don't call me sir.
Thank you, Shell, for finding Nemo. And now we've done the Disney trifecta. Okay. But eventually what it really is that for those people that are there with us, and this, I'll just, explain this to the home audience, that we really do, we internalize visions of those individuals, and those become our attachment figures. So they can either teach us to self-soothe and calm us down, or if they're not a great attachment figure, which, let's be honest, there's some people out there that are like that, that we don't learn those skills, and we may become more anxious, more upset, or even, where we're maybe even a little bit rageful because we haven't had that person to kind of be there with us, help us. We learn from the outside in.
Yeah, for sure. From the outside in. Yeah. In fact, it's interesting you say that, because I think that is true. And it's also true as a mirror. That is to say, the outside mirrors the inside mirrors the outside. So there's internal things that influence the part of mind that's outside. There's, the part of mind that's outside influences the internal. And in fact, I think that's a great lead-off point for us to talk about. From here, where do the conversations go? Now, we talked about a few different things. Some of the content that we're looking at getting into, things such as the person and environment model, understanding exactly more about what we just were discussing. We talked about some content that would be around the personal inside the professional, being dropping down that professional guise a little bit and allowing that personal self to come out, some of our own personal stories and how they relate to being human. We talked about phones and how phones have become a very disconnecting thing, and potentially having someone come on to talk about how that interferes with people's connection. We talked about maybe having some people on to talk about just some of their life experiences. We talked about potentially youth mental health, eating disorders, understanding suicide and risk of suicide. And I think some of these topics will be really good for us to delve into in a way in which we're not looking at this from some disease position, but that we're looking at it from human beings that are experiencing life.
Yeah, the old technical term, like a person's lived reality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So on that note, perhaps we'll wrap things up. Do you have any last comments?
I just hope that our listeners come along with us on this journey. This was a wonderful maiden voyage. If I would have had a bottle of champagne, I would have cracked it over our
My
mics.
head.
Yeah.
Okay, man, take it easy.
No, okay. We're not getting to that point yet. But
you can't reach me from there anyway.
yeah, a good old bottle of Chateau Picard,
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Cool. Yeah, thanks.
This podcast is intended as general information. We are glad that you joined us today. We hope this message has been as meaningful to you as it has been to us. If you're looking for help, you can find us on Facebook at Humanizing Mental Health or at humanizingmentalhealth.ca.